people, Philip Blank here, getting back from an epic trip where I put the new DJI Action 5 Pro to the test at the Glamis Dunes for Camp RZR 2024. And I must say, this thing did not disappoint. I decided last minute to order this camera for my trip out to the dunes, so this camera arrived the week I was leaving. This video is not a review of the camera covering cost or specs, but more just a capability test of this thing straight out of the box so you can judge the results for yourself. I bought this cam upgrading from the Hero 10. I've been a GoPro lover for life since the Hero 2, but the low light grain when shooting the interior of a car and the many camera crashes or overheating when shooting inside a windshield, I just wanted a change. Since the Hero 13 was not sexy enough to upgrade to, I decided to purchase the Action 5 Pro as I had many DJI products and all of them have been flawless. On top of this, my DJI Mic 2s link directly to the camera, so that's going to cut out a step from my workflow. Since this camera arrived right before I left, I've had no time to practice or purchase ND filters. I'm running this thing handheld and bone stock. All the footage was shot in 2.7K at 30 FPS in the standard bitrate, but I did shoot in log with a negative 0.3 EV compensation. I think I ran this whole week in rock steady and wide. Hindsight, I would have adjusted to run that in 60 FPS and swap between wide and ultra wide, and I wish I would have actually mounted the camera instead of holding it or mounting it on my helmet when driving, but again, the footage you are seeing is from someone with no experience on any of the DJI Action cameras. Now first off, looking at the footage, I am loving what I'm seeing. Look at these shots looking straight into the sun. You can still see the shadows and details everywhere else in the image, and this is all shot without any ND filters as they've not arrived yet. As with all other action cams, this thing does excel in bright light, but I was really shocked actually how good this thing looks in the dark. Obviously, we were running extremely bright light bars and whips which showed a great contrast to the dark, but the footage almost looks as good as it did in real life in the pitch black at Oldsmobile. I also took this thing on several sunrise rides, and I really liked how the footage turned out for that. To me, the colors look great straight out camera. I was shooting in log and running it through DJI's LUT, but obviously that log profile is going to let you adjust the colors much better to your liking. Now, where having experience would have really helped me was in the super dark shots using a better setting for the stabilization and motion blur. Things are getting pretty choppy here. I imagine it was slowing the shutter speed, and handheld, some of the stuff is just super jittery. Standing still and running it slow looks great, but out riding in the dark, you can see the lights jumping back and forth, and it's almost not good enough to use, but that's what I wanted to show you. The bright lights on the units do look decent with minimal haloing. As you can see here, the bright purple to the black and the fireworks mixed in looks stunning to me for an action camera. I'd say this is almost on par with how good the iPhone 15 Pro looks at night. Comparing these shots here directly to the iPhone, I think both are pretty interchangeable, especially with the fact that with all this sand, I would never bring my Sony out here. Even at base camp where I was using it, sand was getting in all its dials. Now to me, it's still night and day over the GoPro Hero 10, as that thing just struggled in the shadows and put noise into everything. I've never used a Hero 11, 12, or 13, I'm sure they are better, but darkness like this is really just pushing what an action cam can handle, and even with that, I think it looks great. Now I did not use the Super Night mode, I've never used that or tested it, I just left it at the 2.7K and 30 FPS. Now jumping to the audio, all the sound in this footage is straight from the Action 5 with the wind mode on the whole time. And it does a pretty decent job until the higher speeds where, as expected, it clips. It did hold on pretty well, but I've already gone out and purchased a few wind muffs to try and reduce this, as I really hate wind clipping noise. Here is some footage of having the camera on my chest out on a ride, and as you can see, right around 45 miles per hour it gets to be too much for it. 70 miles per hour on the RZR in the dunes is too much for it, so I am going to be using those wind muffs. Now the new part of the camera for me is the magnetic mount. I wish it did have a 1/4 screw in the bottom, but if you watch a teardown, you'll see why they didn't install one. The little clamps did fill with sand, so it was pretty gritty when you unlocked the mount, but it still worked great, so I'm excited to have this mount. Now I was able to get a lens and screen protector in time for this trip with all the sand, and those are pretty eaten up, so I highly recommend those to protect your screens. Now the worst experience I have had with this camera is the thing turning on in my pocket. The top record button is so much less tactile than the GoPros, and it just seems to click in the front of my hoodie pocket. I checked to make sure it was not voice activated, but I kept feeling the pocket getting warm and would find a 15-minute video film straight in my pocket. It happened countless times and it really started to bug me, so I stopped putting it in my pocket, but I wish the button was a different style to have more tactile feedback through a glove or to prevent this from happening. Now overall, I was blown away by how well this camera did from dawn, all day, then into the pitch black night with the extreme contrast to the light bars and the whips. So far this thing has met all my expectations and actually started to exceed them, so there's a couple accessories that I'm waiting on arriving to improve this thing, but I'll let you guys know if I start having any issues. So let me know if you have any questions or suggestions on how I can improve my footage. I'm still learning this camera, so I have a long way to go. So with that, have a great day and peace.